Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Demigoddess Show. If you guys do not know me, I am a spiritual baddie. I am a culture critic. I am a certified life coach, a Torah reader, and a plethora of other things. We're going to go ahead and get into the Black man mental health epidemic. Okay. This before I get into this, I want you guys to know, okay, no disrespectful comments. I'm just gonna block you guys. I'm not gonna deal with it because last time I did a video specifically about black women, you guys try to go in on me and you guys were saying some very hateful, ignorant comments, and I don't appreciate it. It's okay to disagree. We could agree to disagree, but do not come on my platform being disrespectful, okay? This is to bring awareness. If you don't like the awareness that I'm bringing, then do your own research. And I encourage you to do your own research, okay? So I want to talk about Black mental health. I want to actually play this video, this TED talk, and then, just drop my comments and feelings off of it. I'm going to bring some statistics in this as well. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of reviews on material that I saw online as well with some statistical data we could talk about and dive into. So let's go ahead and get into this. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Don't you guys see that? Okay.
Depression, divorce, debt, devastation, deadbeat, despair. There is a black male mental health struggle. I became a therapist in therapy. The unsustainability of black male trauma, black male rage, black male resentment is a real thing, an unsustainable thing. So what's the struggle? 1 in 4 psychologists are black. And when I say black, I mean that includes black men and black women. According to the American Psychological Association, 4% psychologists worldwide, in this country, are black. For every 100,000 black Americans, only one black psychiatrist. 7% of black men received any form of mental health services in the last.
Can I say this right here? Because I'm a strong believer of mental health, right? And it is extremely disheartening when you are trying to find mental health services and it is primarily filled with white people or other ethnicities, but primarily white people, right? And forgive the popcorn in the background because I am going to use the popcorn. So that's one of the things that it is very, I know some people they only want to talk to like their own ethnicity, right? Because they know they're able to relate to them. They're able to understand, their economic, breakdown, their upbringing, their culture, right? Not saying that other ethnic groups can't, but time and time again, it's proven you feel more comfortable with your own people, right? So that's one of the issues that goes on in therapy. So I'm glad he actually touched on that. So let's go ahead and continue.
Couple years. Right? Black youth, particularly black boys, are introduced with the struggle of mental health at a very early age. It's treated in elementary school by suspensions or special education referrals. What's the black struggle? That's it. The inadequacy of practitioners who look like black men, who have a unique experience with mental health. Right? What does that mean for all of us? The current mental health industry does not sustain black male trauma, black male rage, black male resentment, which means we have to look at the factors that are uniquely attributed to black males in this country. What makes me qualified to talk about black male mental health struggle? Well, beyond the obvious of being a black male, I crashed in 2008, the year the mortgage industry crashed, the real estate market, right? That same year, my mother informed me she had stage 4 cancer. In 2009, I became a father for the 4th time. But this time was unique because the child was already 21 years old, which means right before my 17th birthday, I had a child. In 2010, my mother ended up passing away from cancer. I moved her from Chicago to Georgia before the diagnosis to live out her golden years under the sun of the South, to work with me and for me. She ended up passing. In 2011, I went to what I now label as a very eventful divorce. I lost everything. I walked away from everything. I lost my family, my spouse at the time away from the children, assets, things of that nature. In 2012, I experienced my very first panic attack. I found myself in the middle of a public park here in Atlanta, lying on my back, crying profusely for what seemed like hours. In 2013, I had my second panic attack. This one was different.
Let me tell y'all something. I don't know if you ever experienced a panic attack, but a panic attack, it will make you feel like you are having a heart attack. It is like the most, and again, it depends on the type of person, right? I had my first panic attack. I was going through um a very tough time with my past person. Okay, I'm working on not acknowledging what they were to me. Um and I ended up going to the hospital over that. And I thought I had a heart attack because I literally could hear my heart beating through my chest. I couldn't breathe. I had an inhaler because I do have asthma. Even my Bruderol didn't work. My emergency inhaler didn't work, and I went to the hospital. And they told me I had a full blown panic attack. That was my very first panic attack I've ever experienced. It could be very, very scary. I was not educated in panic attacks, so I suggest you guys get well versed in them because it could happen at any time. Something traumatic could happen to you that triggers you. It could also be something that is a reoccurring thing, or it could be a one-off thing. So I really suggest you guys do your research and figure it out, because I didn't know what it was. I honestly thought it was a heart attack because, yeah, I thought I was having a heart attack because I had tightness in my chest. So when I looked up the symptoms online, it pointed to a heart attack. I never thought in a million years to think that I was having a panic attack. So I'm really glad that he's unpacking this and giving an example from a black male perspective.
This one, I was with the partner at the time, and she said that she overheard me saying some things that were troubling. Later on that day, I had a special event I needed to be at. My friend at the time took me to the local emergency room because, as black males, that is how we address our mental health struggles, right? When it really
Or
gets to the
drugs,
point,
or
we have to
sex, or
see
alcohol,
someone at the local hospital emergency room. So, of course, they
or
kept me
sometimes
72
physical
hours,
abuse.
suicide watch. I missed the court date. My partner at the time took the signed medical excuse to court at the time that I was supposed to report. The judge refused it, subsequently generating a bench warrant, and I eventually had to address that. That same year, 2013, my father passed.
First of all, can we unpack that? That literally is, I know it's up to the judge to decide what they want in their courtroom. But if someone is bringing you a medical excuse, why are you dismissing that and issuing a bench warrant? That is just a prime example of systematic racism. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have done that to an Asian person or a white person. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have done that. Let's go on. It's just oftentimes black people, black men, black women, black children, when it comes to the justice system, and I'm not going to say the entirety, but there's countless court cases, right? And incidents where we get harsher punishments for the same crime, or we do less than our counterparts. And it's just very disheartening that in 2024 we are still experiencing it. And I pray one day my people don't have to go through that anymore.
Just when we were attempting to repair a 40-plus year fragmented, fragile, broken relationship, he passed. Went to Chicago, did the morning, came back to Atlanta. 2 days after mourning my dad's death, was pulled over by local law enforcement. Had to settle that warrant from a few months earlier. So for the next 57 days, I sat in a jail cell, in a jumpsuit, grieving what I thought initially was only my father's death. What I now know was all of the stressors, the losses, the trauma, the rage, the resentment I had since I crashed the same year the mortgage and real estate market crashed. So during that time, I went to 5 different therapists. Now, I wasn't shy from therapy because my mother, bless her heart, she was ahead of her time. She took me to see a therapist in high school. We're talking in the 80s. The good thing is it ended up being family therapy, and we learned a lot of tools and strategies that really benefited us. But when it was my time, during 2008 to 2013, it felt differently, right? But I still went. I went to 5 different ones. The first 4, nothing. It was cool to share my struggles, but I didn't get any help. Why? Because it was irrelevant, right? The practitioners who did not look like me were culturally incompetent.
Yes.
They meant well.
Yes.
I didn't have time to teach them about my lived experiences. I needed.
Let me listen. I have to come to the screen on this one. My parents were ahead of their time when it came to therapy too. And one of the things that um I kind of resent living in America is there isn't a lot of black therapists. And some people will say, they will think, well, maybe there's not black people applying to be a therapist, or, going to graduate school. Listen, they don't even let a lot of black people into those type of roles. I know from personal experience because I applied to be a therapist for grad school. It is extremely competitive and they make it almost impossible. You got to damn near be, straight A student, have some pull with someone to get in. Not saying, that's everybody's case, but I've experienced that, right? And then essentially after doing my own research and stuff, I decided to go to be a certified life coach, but I eventually am going to go back to grad school. So all this to say is when he said that therapy didn't work because his therapists were culturally incompetent, that is true. You could go to any therapist and you could go to any therapist, right? But if you do not connect with that person, if you do not have anything like, there has to be a connection there. And I'm not saying that other ethnic groups cannot be your therapist, or can or cannot be your therapist, right? but there has to be a connection. And in the Black community, we have come a long way when it comes to, even speaking about, if we're having struggles with mental health and things like that, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to, really going to therapy and finding the right therapist. I think we're having the conversations now about, trauma, right? We're talking a lot about trauma. We're talking about generational trauma now. We're talking about depression, anxiety, even domestic violence more, right? But I think we're now starting to get to the point where we're getting more in detail about what therapy is. You got to look up these therapists and see, read their profiles. Read their profile, see if you would mesh with them just looking on their online website, right? Read their profile, see where they went to school, see what they specialize in. Because why would you go to a therapist that is essentially their background is school psychology, right? But then you're going for your trauma, right? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, unless you're talking about your childhood trauma, right? So it just doesn't make sense. Like there's different practices you could get, if you get your PhD, or, you get your master's in counseling. You get, now is it, what is it, a license practicing counselor, a LPC. So it's all different types of, and then you could get a PsyD, which is a psychology doctorate. Okay, so there's all different types of degrees in psychology, and I don't think people do their research on it. And that's one of the things. And then if it really is going to matter to you having a Black therapist, you're going to have to do a lot of research to find one. They're out there, but you're going to have to really put in the work, because you're more likely to find a white person or Asian person, even an Indian person, before you see an actual African American or even African therapist. And that is just the reality of things here in America. So I'm glad he unpacked that. So let's go ahead and finish this. I just wanted to bring my pretty face on this screen and share, just my experience. I eventually found a therapist that I related to, but then I moved to Oregon and she doesn't service in Oregon. So, okay. Let's go ahead and continue this.
Tools and strategies. I needed them like yesterday. So after going through 4 different therapists, I gave up on therapy. I knew I was in trouble. It was evident in my life. I still didn't know where to go. Good friend urged me to take one more attempt to finding a therapist. So I did. Found this gentleman. Walked in his office. I knew the drill, right? Sat down, poured out my heart, right, for the next 30, 35 minutes. And at the end of my spiel, the gentleman looked me in my eye and asked me this question that forever changed my life. He said, "You ever thought about becoming a therapist?" I said, "Man, what? Are you kidding me? I'm here for therapy. I'm not here for career coaching." He said, "No, hear me out." He said, "Look, I am about to retire. I've been doing this 35 years. I've seen Black men come and go. I can't help them. I don't think the entire mental health industry can help them, but I think you can." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you're not clinically depressed. You're emotionally exhausted. You're sad."
I want to stop right there. That is very important, to have people in your life that see the potential in you or see that you have a talent and to push you towards it. I'm so glad he had this therapist see this in him and pushed it, because that is another thing that our community, we don't do enough of. So I'm glad. This is a beautiful story.
Sad. You're angry. You're devastated, right? You're going through trauma. You're grieving, but it's not clinical depression. It's the unique experience of being a Black male in this country, right? I'm not asking you to give up on therapy. Just find someone who looks like you. Better yet, become the person you're looking for. You are your own solution. And I left out of his office feeling defeated, right? devastated, right? I was pissed. Walked out of it. I said, okay, no worries. I'll figure it out. As a matter of fact, I'm not doing anything. 3 weeks later, I started to feel better. His words touched me spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I started feeling lighter, right? Things started to make sense to me. He went on to say, go back to school. Let your journey be a part of your healing. And somehow I think this is your purpose. This is what the last therapist told me. And that's what I did. That gentleman was a middle-aged white guy.
Wow.
So I did what he told me, right? It makes sense. He said, it's no accident you're here. I did it. Didn't necessary training. I dropped out a PhD program so I can add D to that list of Ds I started off with, right? So I got back in school. I had nothing else going on. It changed my life. So now I spend my days supporting black males, those who care about them and love them, and those who are raising them with a unique approach to black mental health struggles. You see, the struggle is because black men are not being taken care of in a way that really touch, moves, and inspires them, right? Black males, black males, we don't do well with one-on-one, right? We don't like isolation. We definitely don't do well with labeling. You know, in the hood, we call that name calling. We don't do well with that, right? We don't do well with code switching when it comes to our lives, right? And we definitely don't have time to break down our lived experiences from others who need some type of explanation before they can give us some colonized version of how we need to go about healing. So I set out to create a unique experience for black men to address the black male mental health struggle. You see, as black males, I found out we need some things. We know a lot. We just need it in a way that we can use our own language to get it, right? We know about breath work, right? We know about meditation. We know about yoga. We're even for the dialectical approach, the cognitive behavior approach, right? We good with relationship and individual therapy. We'd rather have it in group, barbershop. That's where we're comfortable, right? Most of us have had some type of sport, so we get the importance of breath work. We get that. We just need it to come from someone who looks like us and who has walked the walk and talked the talk, right? See, as black males, we don't do what you say. We do what you do, right? So if you could tell us, show us, guide us, walk with us, we honor something. And that's what I did. So how does that look? How does that work in terms of sustaining the existing mental health industry? Well, we have to take more of a uncolonized approach to black mental health. We have to encourage one another that there are certain signs and symbols that are indicators of distress and not necessarily mental disorders or mental illnesses, right? But we need to be able to convey it to this unique group, black males, who have been born under racism. Because racism, aggression, and microaggression, born into that, makes something of you, right? It's exhausting. So when you start adding on debt and depression and divorce, you get the picture. You have now become exhausted, right? Not necessarily a mental illness, but things are definitely out of order, right? So that's what we need. We need the existing practitioners to become culturally competent on what this means for the people they serve. We need young college students who are black, preferably male, to be encouraged to go into mental health, right? We need the existing black practitioners to be amplified and elevated.
Now, I'm going to have to correct them. Black women and men.
All of us to know that there is a unique experience for black males that starts when we are born, mostly caused by racism, right? Exacerbated by unemployment, increased with PTSD symptoms due to violence, right? And this starts when we're in elementary school with suspensions and special education referrals. So I implore all of us to sustain the existing mental health industry. We have to take into consideration the uniqueness of the Black male mental health struggle. That goes for first responders on every level. That goes for clergy, university, teachers, students, nonprofit organizations, right? Law enforcers, lawmakers, politicians. All of us have to be re-educated on what that means uniquely for Black males and our struggle. And in the spirit of the late, great Earl DMX Simmons, in order to speak for the people, must walk amongst the people. Rest in peace, Dante Wright. Rest in peace, Adam Toledo. Rest in peace, George Floyd. Thank you.
That is very, very, very beautiful. I'm actually going to look into this gentleman here. I would love to connect with him and just pick his brain. Um, wow. I want to see some of the comments here. Can't sleep at 3:30 a.m. I found this. I cried so hard watching this. Man, I needed this. Keep speaking out. Someone is listening that needs to hear this and see that they aren't by themselves. Thank you, brother. We need therapy desperately, and we must do it for each other, leading by example. Bless this man. This was the exact reason I decided to become a therapist and go back to school. This is beautiful. Oh, that was so good. Definitely encouraged me to keep this mental to wait. Uh encouraged me to keep in this mental health industry. One of the best TED Talks I watch is it's unspoken cross to carry in this life. Yeah, this was a really, really good um this was a really, 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 really good video. I do have another video for you guys. And I want to, break this one down too. This one is just as beautiful. And this is like a roundtable discussion with Black men about mental health. So, yeah, let's go ahead and watch this. I'm probably going to get copyright on this too, but I don't care. You guys still will get the gist of it. So, it's this one. Yikes, I don't want.
Anthony Clark. I'm a certified life and love coach and an author.
Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing mental health, physical health, and I just want you guys to tell me, and anybody can start. I want you to tell me when you recognized that you needed help, right? You were at your lowest, and I want you to tell me maybe who is the one that helped you recognize that.
I'll go ahead and start. So there was a period of time where, I had moved to California. I'm out here working my way up, corporate ladder. And then my last job that I had, I was striving for a particular position, really, really wanted to get there. So I ended up getting this position, and a year before I got this position, my dad passed. So I'm in this position, in a new position, still dealing with that, not really realizing it, on top of being in a position where, up until that point, 18 years before, I was a man. I knew exactly what to do. I'm in this position because of my experience. However, in this particular job, this field, I don't know what's going on. I'm still learning everything. So I'm like green again. I'm like, I ain't been green for 18 years. What is this? So going through that, then I'll fast forward a little bit. I had a conversation one day. I was met a guy who had been in this position for quite some time. I was leaving work, came up on him, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? You know, let me get some feedback from him. At this time, it was probably like 6 months in.
Yeah.
Maybe a year. And, you know, he's telling me everything about how his day went, how his last couple of weeks have gone, and what the forecast is for the next couple of weeks. And as he's talking, I'm realizing there is no way in hell I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. There is no way. So coming to that realization in that moment, in that conversation, driving home, having that epiphany, still the lingering effect of losing my dad. And then in the middle of this, you know, we still doing our podcast, me and my wife and everything, vlogging and everything. And I look back, fast forwarding, you know, up until through last year, realized I was extremely depressed. I was going through it. And I thought I was just stressed because of work. Like I lost a whole lot of weight. Yeah. I'm between 220 and 240. Right now I'm like 245. I was down to barely 200 pounds. And on my frame, going back and look at it, you can tell like my face is shrunken down. And I told my wife, I was like, I was depressed right here. I was looking at a video. I was like, look at my face. I don't even look healthy.
Yeah.
And she, you know, they don't see that. Like, you always look good, babe. Like, man, just shut up. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm over here, like, look at me right here. So realizing that, it was like, I had that trauma of, it was like almost like a trauma of looking back at the past and was like, dang, I went through that and I didn't even realize it.
Was it the fact that it disrupted your purpose?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, as you know, a lot of men have this whole mindset, you know, a lot of us, our career is us. That defines us, what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
And me being in this position, you know, money's okay and everything, but being in this, and it's just like, but if I don't want to do this, what am I going to do with my life?
Okay.
I got a family, I got 4 kids, I got a wife, I got mortgage, I got bills. It's like, I support all of this. My wife is over here. People see her as the mogul. I'm the foundation of that. Like, I'm stable. This is what I do.
Yes.
I've done this for 20 years. This is me. And this ain't what I want to do.
And now it's gone.
And my heart is not in it. So that's when, it's gone. Like the thrill was gone. And I was just like, what? So it was like a hard conversation I had with myself. But then I realized, I hope I'm not fast forwarding it, but I realized every single time I've made an elevation in my career, an elevation in life, God was always the forefront of that. And I realized he always makes me uncomfortable enough to move. So I move myself. Amen. It ain't like I pray for it and God's like, oh, here you go. Yeah. It's like, no, God's like, no, I'm gonna make you uncomfortable enough to where you can do this. You end up doing this yourself. I'm gonna push you out of that place you don't want to be in. And that's what he was doing. And that was what, fast forward now, that's what moved me to retire from my 9-to-5 last year in May and work for me and my wife full time. Yeah. So now self-employed. But I ended up going through all that because I never would have stepped away from my 9-to-5 because that's what I do. You know, that hands-on, I you know, structural and tech, I do all that stuff all day. But did I enjoy it? No, I was just good at it.
Yeah. Can I just?
I think it's important. Let me pause this.
I just kind of wanted to.
I think it's very, very important when you are picking your career that you do things that y'all need my face on this. Y'all do things that is aligned with you. You do things that make you happy, that make you feel good. Therefore, your job doesn't feel like it's a burden. It doesn't feel like that. That is very, very important. I'm kind of in that crossroad. I'm like, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, make sure you are doing something that makes you happy because you are important. Okay? It's not always about the money. All right, let me go back in here.
Table it to Anthony because it seems like all the things throughout your life has kind of culminated to the moment where you and your wife got together. Now you guys are life coaches, right? Because you've had a very interesting story.
Yeah, you could have life if you want to be a life coach.
Exactly. So can you tell me about that point where you kind of reached that low point and you were like, something has to change at this moment?
So for me, there were a couple of moments like that in my life. So I had like multiple breakdowns. Well, I like to call them catharsis that I went through. The first one was I moved to California, I played sports, and I moved from Brooklyn to California to go to college at 17. And immediately I met my college girlfriend. And we moved in together, and I saw that we weren't compatible, but I stuck with it anyway.
That's
But
crazy.
we started fighting like cats and dogs. We're both stubborn. And so we broke up. We were doing the X sex, make up, break up, make up, break up. And she said she was pregnant with twin boys. At the time, I had an opportunity to play pro basketball in Peru and pro baseball with the Brewers, AA baseball. So I was ready to go to camp, and she comes back and goes, I'm pregnant. And even though we weren't connected, my father wasn't there for me. So I'm like, I'm always going to be there for my kids, even though I feel like I shouldn't be with her. So I married her anyway. So in the process, I had to give up the sports because she needed help right then and there. So I couldn't report to camp. So to make a long story short, I married her. The twins were born, named after me. The first 3 years, we just fought, me and her, like still like cats and dogs, and it just hit rock bottom. It was like, this ain't gonna work. Then I found out that I wasn't the biological father after all of that. So here I am in my 20s, like 21, 20, about 20, 23 at the time. Lost the marriage, athletic career, my whole future. So it was like rock bottom.
Yeah.
I even thought about killing myself at different points.
Wow.
But then my spirit was like, you know what? This could be a blessing. This could be an opportunity for you. But in order for you to take advantage of it, you got to get your shit together. You got to stop blaming everybody else and start looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And so I started doing my inner work.
Okay, so what does that look like? Because a lot of people say inner work, but I don't know what be working inner. You know what I'm saying? You got to tell me what that means.
My inner work was to be honest with myself and to look at how I was, how I thought, and to start questioning, is this really benefiting me? Why am I being like this?
That is very, very important, especially now since there's a trend on spirituality, right? They talk about the inner child. They talk about, their trauma, healing their wounds, things like that. That he is essentially giving a really good description on what it looks like when you are, having this spiritual awakening or, parenting your inner child, healing those inner child wounds. It's asking those tough questions, putting yourself in scenarios that make you feel uncomfortable, having difficult conversations with people that have hurt you in the past, or maybe you hurt them in the past, really unpacking a lot of things that you suppressed, you haven't addressed, bringing them to the forefront, and it doesn't feel good. But you doing that work over time, you will feel good about yourself. You will know yourself more. You will heal those inner child wounds. You will be a better person, but you have to work through that difficulty, okay, of feeling uncomfortable, because it is a very uncomfortable feeling. But you got to keep steadfast when you're in that place, okay?
This? Why do I act like this? And the tendency for a lot of people is to be like, well, that's just the way I am. But I knew if I stay the way I am, I'm not going to get to where I want to be. So I always say, like, to go there, you got to grow there.
You got to change.
On this level, you're always trying to get to high levels of understanding, enlightenment, wealth, you name it. So how are you going to get to those other levels? They ain't going to come to you. You got to go to it. So I got to expand and get out of my old way of thinking and being. And so I recreated myself. And I describe it like, and this connects to even a second trauma, so I'm going to combine them together. I went into the Department of Corrections as a state correctional officer, and I was involved in a shooting. And after that shooting, I experienced post-traumatic stress. So now it goes back to the inner work. How am I gonna get out of this? The same way with the marriage, with that, now the shooting. So I compare it to a pantry cabinet. And everything in that pantry cabinet has been there throughout my entire life, the sun shaking. These are all my beliefs, all the things I was programmed to be and this and that. But it wasn't working for me. But I didn't really realize it. Then one day there's this traumatic event, the marriage, the divorce, the shooting, where there's an earthquake and everything gets knocked over. And so that's the breakdown. Now you lose your identity. Who am I? Like you, it forced me. That catharsis. The system breaks down when it takes too much pressure. Eventually it's gonna break down. But it breaks down to give you an opportunity to rebuild it back even better.
Can we shout out to how attractive these Black men are? Like every last one of them are attractive, whether it's physically, whether it's intellectually, their energy. They are very, very attractive. And everyone has their preference. I like black men. Black men are not my preference. That doesn't mean that I don't love my people or anything. But they are very, very, very attractive. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Sorry.
So with my catharsis, it was like, okay, what most people try to do is to go back to what they were. So let me put the stuff back in here, but you're gonna get the same life again. So I was like, you know what? No, this is a great opportunity. I have the opportunity now to create the life I wanna live. I wanna be who I wanna be, not because of what other people
Wonder if
expect
they
of me.
did
I'm gonna be
chapters.
my true self. I'm going to spirit within.
Yeah.
So that connection, because that's the internal guidance system where everything you need, all the answers, it's gonna God, whatever name you want to call it. So most people trying to get it out there. It's not out there. There's
I'm
nothing
gonna
out there.
go
Right?
here because I
It's in
want
here.
him to speak.
Because like I'm so similar to both of you guys. It's like as far as I had to recreate myself every time I moved to a different city. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm from Philly, born and raised, but then I had to move to New York City. You gotta recreate yourself, but you gonna go home. You know what I'm saying? Then moving to LA, it was the same thing. And what was really hard for me was, being a full-time actor and believing that this is what I wanted to do with myself, and it was my dream. I had to 100% commit to that. And with 100% commitment to acting is dealing with financial struggle. Because if you in acting class, you gonna miss work. But if you don't work, you're gonna miss acting class. So it's like you gotta find that balance. And finding that balance is the hardest thing when it becomes being an actor. Like it's the hardest thing because you just gotta find that you gotta be able to figure out which is more. It's like I want to say what is more important. Yeah, what is more important at the time. And of course, she always comes to my mind. My acting coach, my big sis, Tasha Smith, she's gonna come to my mind because, and when I got to LA, her being my coach, she would always say to me, you have to find a way to sustain yourself. You have to find a way. And she would always say that to me. And when you broke, it's like, I ain't trying to hear that.
Yeah,
like,
I'm surviving.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And then being so close to somebody like that, people think that that was a relationship that was, that I was born into. Like, no, that was, that was something that God gave me when I moved here. But that's what I was doing before I even got here. That's what I was doing in New York. I was trying to find a way to sustain myself. And I don't think I ever knew how to put a word to it. But of course she does. You know what I'm saying? So the reality is, every time when it came to recreate myself, I hit rock bottom. And hitting rock bottom is not being able to pay your rent, not being able to pay your bills. And when I hit rock bottom, I always go to God. I go to God, but
You need to go to God before you hit rock bottom.
Until I moved to LA and I went to One Church LA with Sarah Jakes Roberts and Torrey Roberts. That's when I learned, like, it was just different going to that church. That church showed me, when people, oh, that's the Hollywood church, call it what you want, because that church feeds me. You know what I'm saying? And that church feeds me because it's relatable. It's not judgmental. It's just like the truth of like, yo, like, Sarah won't get up there and talk about auditions.
Yeah.
And she not an actress, but she know what we're going through.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's just about like just really going back to God. That's always where I lead. That's always where I go.
And I think it's something beautiful about being able to lean on a community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I know, Kariga, like you're one of them people that'll call me, and even if I don't answer, like I'm like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like I know you're calling me to a community and pulling me to a place where you believe better, right? You know about the people that you want to interact with. But I think it's because, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but your foundation, with your family and having such a close-knit community with your brothers, and now, to see how you and your wife, collaborating the music and all this stuff, you add to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm listening deeply, processing, and I'm looking at like men on different intersections of life that I'm at. So I'm grateful for the conversation, but I'm also assessing myself within the cipher. And when he started talking about that pantry, I was like, what made him choose the pantry? It's such an interesting place, right? And I do exercise of taking inventory, but
My wife would love for me to take better care of the pantry, right? I know it,
Mm.
and I try. But it really made me look at him on an intersection like, damn, homie taking care of the pantry. At least the pantry's organized. Figuratively and literally though, but like living in the partnership. Um, and that place in life, Marcus, when you're talking about like, being in a career, X amount of years and just looking at it like, yo, it's different now. Or whether recreating yourself and finding that rock bottom and evolving and finding that rock bottom and finding God. And I'm listening to the conversation and the question, and I'm trying to ask myself like, damn, when is it? When was it? Where am I now?
Yeah.
Right? I'm certainly in a mind state of abundance. I'm not at rock bottom, but the blows that took me to the deepest waters, it almost felt like I could not find rock bottom. Rock bottom would have been stable ground.
Wow.
That's very
Rock
poetic.
bottom would have been a certain turning point. I've been in the open. I've been in the deep waters, posturing myself for seeing different.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop. You guys could watch that. This is on Black Love YouTube channel. Okay, on your own time. I do want to share some, Jesus Christ, some statistic data. Keep in mind, I want to encourage you guys to really look up more statistics. I personally, I had some other articles up, but I don't know, they're not up anymore. So we're going to look at a very credible source. And again, when you're looking at data, you want to look at different sources. So I know this video isn't going to be as in depth as some of my other videos when I brought up statistical data or just evidence. But yeah, so I am going to share my screen. Hold on. And just so you guys know, I'll give you a little bit of information, a little bit about this website. So this is statistical data from the American Psychological Association. So for you guys that don't know, I went to school for psychology. I actually graduated for psychology. I majored in it. When you are doing, your studies, you have to buy this book. It's actually a book. This also is the federation where you as a in the mental health field, you have to stay up to date, with protocols, with laws, with new practices. It's just a really good place to find like research, practice. And also when you are a therapist, this is how you would report someone, so just so you guys that don't know anything about, the APA, that's the abbreviation of it, but the American Psychological Association. I wonder if I have my book I could show you guys. I think it's back home. I don't think I bought it here. Yeah, but yeah, this is a major place. I actually need to register. I should have registered. That's so embarrassing. But anyways, this is an article and it has statistical data in it. Okay, so this was last updated January 24th of 2023. It was created September 1st of 2021. Keep in mind when statistics or data, when you're looking at it, it typically takes several years, or I think for you to have like a real sound on what you're trying to sample, right? For the people that don't really know statistics or psychological statistics and things like that. So, yeah, the soonest I've seen like statistics that actually had valid results was like a year. But typically you want to do like a survey or a sample for like 3 to 5 years, just so you guys know. So, Black men's mental health matters. Psychologists are working to develop more effective ways of promoting Black men's mental health. So I'm not going to read through this whole article. I'm actually going to put the links of those YouTube videos that I showed with you guys if you guys want to look at that, especially the last one, because I'm not going to show you that whole thing. And then this website as well. Again, do additional research. I encourage you to, but this is a credible source, just so you guys know. This is really a credible source. Um, okay. CE credits. Okay, so you guys that don't know, when you're going to school for psychology or you have your license, you do have to do continuous educational courses. So this is saying that you can get a credit for this. So if you guys don't know, okay. So the learning objectives of here in this article describe how Black men's mental health is challenged by racism, discuss the most critical intervention points for Black men's mental health. 3, describe successful treatment types for Black men, both traditional and innovative. Okay. Now I'm trying to skim through this. Um, so I could highlight. Okay, I guess I'm going to start right here. The more that systems, programs, and providers find culturally relevant ways to foster Black men's mental health, including directly addressing racial trauma and its effects on more um, the more society will benefit. Added Wisdom Powell, PsyD, an associate professor of psychology at the University of Connecticut and director of the university's health, what is that, Disparities Institute? Diasporas? No, I don't know. I said that word wrong. I'm sorry. Intervention shouldn't be just about healing and restoring Black men, though that would be enough, she said. We also need to think about how much talent we're hemorrhaging by not providing Black men with the proper support. Think of all the innovators, entrepreneurs, scientists, and physicians that will be if Black men weren't being killed with impunity by police officers, and if we were creating spaces for them to heal, grow, and thrive. That is so true. Black women too, and children. Let's add that in there. So, statistical realities. While Black Americans experience similar rates of mental illness as other Americans in general, there are contextual differences. For example, Black adults living below the poverty line are more than likely, or more than twice as likely, to report serious psychological distress at as U.S. adults who enjoy greater financial security, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health. As another example, depressive symptoms among Black people are more disabling, persistent, and the treatment resistant than they are among white people. Okay. And then this is, where they're referencing. And Black men are not receiving the help that they need for these problems. For example, only 26% of Black and Hispanic men ages 18 to 44 who experience daily feelings of anxiety or depression were likely to have used mental health services, compared with 45.4% of non Hispanic white men with the same feelings. And then they have, the article. When Black men do seek help and would prefer a same race provider, it can be difficult finding Black psychologists since they still make up only 4% of the doctoral level psychology workforce, though that number is growing according to 2018. It is extremely hard to find a Black woman or a Black man therapist, okay? They do not make it easy to get into these programs. Okay, there's systematic racism there as well. And that's not talked about enough. And it's very frustrating because I went through that process applying for grad schools and stuff. And I'm a pretty good student. When it came to my psychology classes, I was an A and B student. Um, I hated the research courses, though. I'm not going to lie, because statistics is not my forte whatsoever. And it's really like, it's not fun to me because I don't really like math. So it just wasn't fun. It was fun conducting studies, but it wasn't fun doing the math behind it whatsoever. I hated it. Ugh. Okay. So at the same time, Black men's mental health is more complex than statistics or clinical diagnoses indicate, according to subject matter experts. Because of structural racism and Black men's unique history in this country, their mental health and treatment are intimately tied to factors such as implicit bias on the part of medical providers, high poverty rates, and low access to quality psychological and psychiatric services. Compared with white people, for example, Black people are less likely to receive guideline consistent care or to be included in mental health research. They are also more likely to use emergency rooms or primary care for mental health problems because they have not received appropriate preventative services. For a summary of these findings, see the American Psychiatric Association's fact sheet on mental health disparities among African Americans at psychiatry.org. First of all, this article is fantastic when it comes to psychology, psychologists and psychiatrists. This is exactly how our papers have to be written. When you're in college, you have to write it like this. You have to cite your sources. Everything has to be factual. It cannot be opinion. Even though as a Black person, I put my 2 cents in it. So, given such factors, it's not surprising that many Black men also harbor feelings of mistrust towards medical and mental health systems. I will like to interject here, and I would just say Black people in general. It's not just Black men, it's Black women, Black children. Okay, we all feel some type of way about the health system, rather it's medical, mental health system. Like we all listen, if you've never had a bad experience in these, areas, kudos to you. God bless you. I hope you never experience them. I definitely have experienced them being a Black woman. Um, for instance, in a study reported in behavioral medicine, Powell and colleagues found that everyday and perceived racism along with internalized masculinity norms, influence Black men's reluctance to seek medical help. A history of racism within psychology and psychiatry likewise plays a role, she said. For example, in 1859, physician Samuel A. Cartwright floated the idea of drapetomania, an uncontrollable or insane impulsion to wander among enslaved people who experience a desire for freedom. Wow. So you create a quote unquote mental health issue to support your racism because my ancestors, Black people ancestors, wanted to be free. Do you realize how sick that is? I'm going to be very careful on what I say on here because I do have a job. But it's just, oh God. Anyways, I get so upset when I learn more and more about like my people and just our mistreatment and like the history of us and what we've endured in the United States, not only in the United States, but in other countries. It's just like, how can a race or an ethnic group hate another ethnic group so much that like you continuously, and it's not all, but in the places where it matters, you continuously throw in our face, yeah, you guys are not enslaved, but the systems that we put in place will keep you enslaved. It just hurts. Um, wow, that actually really hurt my feelings, this reading this. And I didn't read this article prior to showing you guys this. It just really just hurt my feelings. In a similar vein, as racial protests began heating up in the 1960s, diagnosis of schizophrenia among Black men became far more common, a phenomenon highlighted by psychologist Jonathan M. Metzl, MD, in the book The Protest Psychosis. Black men today might not know that specific history, said Powell, but it lives in their spirit a little bit, and it gets transmuted into practices like withdrawing from systems, having mistrust of systems, and feeling like systems don't have your best interests at heart. I mean, there's countless, examples of just Black men and women being mistreated, for studies, being lied upon, being, tortured, and, I get it, but we also, as Black people, need to educate ourselves and create systems that can help us fix these issues that we have, right? Or I don't like to say issues, more like areas of growth. This is like areas of where you could grow, okay? Building blocks for intervention, addressing masculine norms. Black men are even more likely than white men to endorse aspects of traditional masculine ideology, such as the need to act tough and in control and to avoid emotional expression, research finds. Okay, I'm not going to go that much further into this article, but I am going to put it in the description box. I know I didn't do it when I started this live, but I want you guys to really read this. Um, oh, they even give you sources of further reading. This is really, really, really good. This is a good article. Yeah, I want you guys to really read this. Okay, this is important, especially if you're a black man. Send this video, share this video to people that are in my live. Please make sure you're not just watching. You give me a thumbs up because that helps me. Okay, get on the algorithm and to bring more awareness on this stuff. But we as a people need to get it to a place we are getting better, collectively. As I mentioned earlier at the start of this video, we are getting better, but black men need a lot of help when it comes to mental health and feeling safe and feeling comfortable. But I this video is specifically for black men, but I do want to acknowledge black women and black children as well. We together, the black family, we need to get to a better place on talking and unpacking trauma and connecting with people that have went through these things and finding resources and sharing them and educating. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting to do better and wanting to do right and wanting to fix things about yourself because you don't want to hurt, right? Or you don't want to continue generational trauma within your bloodline. There's nothing wrong with you. If you feel like you want to get help, do that. Just make sure you do your research, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Make sure the therapist or life coach is the perfect fit for you. If you feel like you need to have a person of color or specifically a black person, do that. It may take you a while to find someone like that, but they are out there. Okay, I'm a certified life coach too. Um, and really, if you really want to do this, make sure you really are committed to actually being successful in healing, because if you're going to half-ass do it, it defeats the purpose. You need to be in a space where you are open to unpacking things that you probably have oh, I never could say this fucking word right. Compartmentalize. I'm saying it wrong. Totally saying it wrong. Anyways, basically, you just hold your stuff in, right? It's time for you to unpack it and release it. Make sure you're in that space, okay? Because therapy, you are going to get out of therapy what you put into therapy. So if you're going to half-ass do it, you're going to get half-ass results. If you're going to give it 110%, you're going to get 110%. But make sure all those other requirements are checked off before you do it, because it defeats the purpose if you go to someone, oh, they're a certified life coach, or oh, they're a therapist, oh, they're a psychiatrist, or oh, they're a licensed practicing counselor, right? But if there's no connection, there's no relation, there's no cultural competency, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel safe, you're not really going to unpack things that really, really matter, that's actually going to allow you to see real growth in you as a person and others. So I can't stress that enough. That's extremely, 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 extremely important if you're going to seek mental health services. Okay. Um, yeah. So I hope you guys like this video. I think it's really important to have roundtable discussions with like-minded people. Go to some conventions, go to group therapy, maybe individual therapy might not work for you. Go to group therapy, try that out. Um, yeah, so go ahead and try those things out. Let me know how you are doing on your mental health journey. I would love to hear from you guys. Um, yeah, and make sure you share the video with someone in need. Make sure you look at those other videos that I showed in here. Give them a thumbs up as well. Make sure you guys give me a comment, a share, a like, and I'll see you guys soon. And I love you so much. And I don't know who needs to hear this. You're important. If no one told you they love you, I love you. Thank you for being on the channel. And I really do love my supporters. I love my subscribers. Like, I love you, and be gentle with yourself and don't beat yourself up. And there's someone out there that's willing to listen to you. Everybody deserves to be heard. just take the time out to expose yourself and allow people to come into your life. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about those feelings. Okay? See you guys soon.